In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
That's what we were told. Most Americans never believed Lee Oswald was the lone gunman, for excellent reasons. In fact, there were at least 6 shooters who fired from 8 to 10 shots or more who are identified here. We have, finally, the solution to the greatest murder mystery in history, laid out for the world to see, proof after proof after proof. Photos were faked, the body was changed, x-rays were altered, the home movies were fixed. 15 experts contribute to a 529-page book with 1,037 photos and diagrams in black and white and color.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you'd like JFK, who, how, and why, and would like to support the new JFK show, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.
All right, welcome to the new JFK Show number 169. We have a fine lady tonight, and we're going to have Mr. Dr. Ralston K. do the introduction for her. We have Dr. Fetcher on board, so we certainly have a full crew tonight. So let's get going. We have a rising star in JFK.
Amy Joyce is with us, and she is a relatively new JFK researcher. I first crossed her path on the John McAdams Forum, which, for those that don't know, it's a very strongly biased towards the whole lone nut claim when it comes to the JFK assassination. There's relatively few Oswald defenders there. But Amy came, and she has shown a tremendous ability to hone through the evidence, not only with images, but with testimonies and reports. She studies them with a tremendous amount of clarity, and she has made some findings that have really been astounding, and you'll find out about these tonight. So with no further ado, here is Amy Joyce.
Thank you. Thanks,
Welcome
everybody.
to the new JFK Show. And just quickly before you get going, Amy, I've been waiting for this one gift you have for a long time. So go ahead and tell us about it.
I went a little happy crazy because I just learned how to do these gifts today. Mm-hmm. And when I figured it out, I spent like 2 hours doing several different ones just because I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, slowing it down, making it bigger. And it took quite a while, but this is a familiar scene from the KRLD film, the main one in which the shooter gets covered up by a detective. That's Lewis Miller, and you can see him doing this. And I know you've gone over it in the past, but I wanted to start with that just because it's something familiar. And I read through all the police reports and the FBI interviews with the police department and other witnesses. And what was his name? James Watson put that in his report. So I wanted to let people know that he said that will be the next slide.
Okay, go to the next slide, Gary. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you can't see it, but it says here that I never saw the suspect or the gun before the shot was fired. Then the officers covered the suspect up and took him into the jail office.
Wow.
So yeah. So we have
that really is very, very startling that a police officer would say that, because in any normal condition you would expect a policeman to subdue a violent offender by handcuffing him, shackling him on the spot. And the idea that they just covered him up and dragged him away is...
Well, the detective who did it was Lewis Miller, and he testified, or in his report, he wrote that somebody pushed the shooter towards him, and then he helped grab him and bring him down and bring him back into the jail office. So he denied it in his report, but a lot of these reports changed. There was initial ones, and then they were re-interviewed, or they issued a second report, and then their memories changed. And that might be something for another time because it's really in-depth. But I think it was Harrison even admitted it later just to cover his butt when he decided to get a lawyer to come with him to testify, because there was a lot of pressure on the police department to cooperate with them, and no one wanted to get in trouble. No one wanted responsibility for Oswald getting shot. But a lot of people might claim that, oh, we don't know, what he was doing. We can't see. Well, it's clear that he was covered up. And but I question why. I mean,
Amy,
obviously it's planned, right?
Absolutely.
Amy, I'm reminded of something, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Miller show up and start asking whether or not he was, liable? He wanted guarantees that he wasn't, going to be
prosecuted?
liable. Yeah, like he acted like he was really fearful that he was going to be subject to, some type of action.
I don't know about Miller, but I know Harrison was.
Harrison was. All right. I think Miller was too.
So, Amy, a quick question. Do you believe that this was staged over a couple of days possibly, and they kept the good footage? I've always thought it might be that way.
I definitely think it was staged, and whatever footage they showed on that Sunday evening or whatever they showed live was done prior to the shooting.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Prior to what people witnessed, because when you go through these reports, people have say the craziest things about what happened. Oh, and a short elderly man with puffy gray hair came out from behind the railing and shot him. I mean, and people are saying this, and they're different orders. They were brought into the jail office. First Oswald, then Ruby, or the shooter, whoever. And then you got 4 or 5 that are saying that Oswald was brought in there afterward. So I don't have a list in front of me, but there's a lot of differences. So whatever they did live, I think what they did was they brought that armored truck to block for a lot of people so that they couldn't see. A lot of people hanging around outside. They couldn't see what was going on because they knew in advance that it wouldn't fit.
It just appears to be
too tall. Yeah.
So basically, the armored truck was a barrier.
Yeah, they didn't want anybody seeing what was really going on down there. Yeah. I mean, they couldn't risk something going wrong. That's what I think.
That's what I was about to say. You cannot louse this up, or else it's over. So they couldn't take a chance of letting some nightclub owner screw it up.
Yeah, right. Or anybody. I mean, people said they thought, whoever it was must have been a great shot because it came out of nowhere. I think it came from the ceiling. I mean, people just didn't see anything.
Yeah, they already screwed up at the Texas Theater without killing Oswald. They couldn't let it happen a second time.
No, that's bizarre. And Ralph and I talk about it a lot, how it could have possibly went down, whether there was a double used or whether, what did you say, Ralph, that they convinced him that maybe, we believe you're innocent, but, we're going to have to fake your death and get you out of town or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely weighs on my mind, that they may have just convinced him to cooperate with the ruse. The guys that, we're going to get you out of this, and we're going to get you out of town, and one way or another, we'll get you back with your family, but we just have to make you look dead, or otherwise people will come gunning for you, even if we tell them you're innocent. So
he might have to save World War III, right, with Russia. Right. Could have told him that like everybody else.
Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, the next one I think you can skip. This was just Watson's testimony where he doesn't say to the Warren Commission that he was covered with something. He just says that they smothered him and he couldn't see who it was. So I'm thinking maybe
that's important, Amy. Don't skip over a slide. Use it. I mean, you're getting valuable information there.
Okay, I didn't want to bore people.
No.
Don't even think that.
Well, Watson sort of had his head turned. So he said he didn't really see the shots, but it was afterwards. So, I mean, the shot happened within like, what, a second, and then another 2 seconds later he was covered up. So that's about 4 seconds that people only had to really see.
Do we see Watson in any of the famous photos, like the Jackson photo or the Beers photo?
He's in the Beers photo, but his head is turned, and he's looking towards the right. He's looking toward the double doors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have that later. I'll point them out to you.
All right, yeah, that's good.
But anybody who said that they saw who the shooter was after he was covered up, we know that they were lying. There's a few of them that said that.
Yes, I saw him underneath 4 or 5 detectives immediately.
Right, with a bag over his head. Yeah, I'm sure that was Jack Ruby.
Wow, this is amazing stuff.
So the okay, we can go to the next one. That's Ruby's clothes the day he supposedly did the shooting.
What is this? His dirty underwear?
Yeah. They call it his shorts, but I think it's more of like a jock strap or something.
Yeah, jock.
That's pretty damn strange.
And well, Ralph will tell you, but I didn't put this in here, but they had Ruby in his underwear. They questioned him for almost 4 hours, and just apparently his jock pants.
Jock straps?
Yes, completely naked.
Wow.
Until 11:30 until 2. Then he spoke to his lawyer for 4 minutes. They let him get dressed for that. Then they let him get dressed for a short interview at 3:45 with Fritz. Then they undressed him again until 6 o'clock. And finally gave him something else to wear, but it's ridiculous. But I wanted to point this out.
Wait a second, Amy. Are you saying that he didn't get what I call the cabana outfit until 6 o'clock?
Well, 6 o'clock is when Dr. Bieberdorf went up to see him, and he said that he was wearing something different then.
Oh, so that's the first evidence that he was in other clothes.
Yes.
Well, what about the mugshot pictures? When do you think they were taken? Do you know the time?
They would have had been after they gave him that outfit.
So that had to be the evening then.
It had to be the evening because he went. There was twice that they let him get his own clothes, and they specifically said his own clothes. We gave him back his shoes. We gave him back his shirt. We gave him back his pants, and we let him go talk to his lawyer. Then we stripped him again, and their excuse was they didn't want him to harm himself.
Oh my goodness.
What are they going to do? I mean, they take his tie away, that's fine, but, I don't see how he's going to harm himself with his shirt and his pants. And I think either they were intimidating him by taking all of his stuff away and making him, he wasn't even in a cell. He was in a hallway naked.
Wow. But that speaks of Jack Ruby's mind, though, because, any normal man, if, even if he's arrested for murder, if the cop says, okay, I need your drawers, he's going to object. He's going to say, what, are you crazy? I mean, the idea that you would just calmly go along with it is, to me, it shows that Ruby was in a very just mentally compliant state.
This suggests to me they were trying to impose a form of traumatic shock so that he would be shaken up by the whole experience. And, of course, he had no memory of it because we infer he didn't do it. So, of course, he didn't remember doing something he hadn't done. But this kind of treatment is bizarre in the extreme and otherwise inexplicable.
And another thing though that occurred to me, Jim, and I'll point it out to Amy too, that when you have a man down to his drawers and whatnot, it's immobilizing. He's not going to run away in his drawers. Okay, he's not going to try. If they were at all concerned that Ruby might just bolt, that keeping him in his underwear was a way of restricting him.
It actually throws him out of a defensive posture. I mean, he feels so insecure when he's stripped naked that his normal tendency, say, to deny he had done what he was accused of having done might have been compromised psychologically by undressing him.
It was a form of mind control, too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's what they say. That's what I've read, too. Yeah, they use that. I mean, you're locked up, and then you have everything taken away from you, and Jack Ruby was the type of man that he wanted to please people, especially the cops. He loved them. He wanted to be a part of their gang.
Right.
So he was going to comply with whatever they had to say. I mean, and hey, am I doing anything else wrong? You want my underwear? I can give you that too. I mean, he just, anything they wanted, he would give.
It reminds me of the lady in the polka dot dress, where the detective convinced her that she did not see what she thought she saw. And they may have well been doing that to Ruby.
No, you don't mean the lady herself. You mean the witness who saw the lady.
Yeah. The witness that I just remember seeing a person talk to someone for a couple of hours, like a detective, and by the time it was over, the person agreed with them.
Right, that he hadn't seen a woman in a polka dot dress come out screaming, "We got him! We got him! Who'd you get? The senator?"
Exactly.
That's what it reminds me of.
So I wanted to point out the hat. That was supposed to be the hat shooter was wearing. It's hard to see in this picture, but on the right side of the hat, which would be whoever's wearing it, their left, there's like a bow. I don't know if a man would call it a bow, but
it looks like a glass case to me. And notice they put the glasses, which Jack wasn't wearing, on top of the hat.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the actual, go to the next one because you could see it better. Okay, this is the side of the hat, and you see the strap they had around above the bill, and then there's like a bow on the side. That would be on his left.
Right.
Well, the stripe in the middle was actually the same color as the hat.
Now, when you say that, you mean in the Jackson photo?
In the Jackson photo,
Photo, yeah.
So this is the hat from evidence. And then in the Jackson photo.
You're saying the hat in the evidence didn't coincide with the hat in the photo, which means it was a substitution of evidence.
Something like that.
Well,
either that or they brushed it out.
They did the equivalent of photoshopping of the picture, and the guy who did it. Now, keep in mind, what she's talking about is that vertical little sort of.
Ralph, you don't have any idea how much you're tilted over. You look like a drunken sailor on a ship. Yeah, it's very disconcerting to have that angle. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. I have it with examples if you want to go to the next one. I think the first one, okay, yeah, this is from the telephoto, which they sent out that night. And you can see on the right, that's a close-up. And then there's the stripe, and it's the same color as the hat. It's not the same color as the bow.
Well, what do you mean? What's the stripe then, Amy? What's the stripe?
In the photo on the right, there's a ribbon around the hat.
Right.
And there's a stripe going up and down across the ribbon.
You mean that stripe in the middle of the bow toward the front?
Yeah, in other words, in the middle of the bow.
And it's missing on the other hat, right? It's missing on the other hat. Go back.
Exactly.
Right here.
Yeah, right. Go back to the other hat.
Right.
Yeah, there's no such stripe. Good point. Good point.
Well,
But there is a black though.
Excuse me, Jim. There is a stripe there. It's just that it's black. It's the same color as the rest of the ribbon.
Right. So then this is the Jackson photo, and then we're going to compare the hat.
Which means it's a different hat.
No, Jim, it's not likely that. It's more likely that it's a highly photoshopped image. And I'm using that word generically. I don't really mean they had Photoshop, but, recently, Larry...
Well, I think what they did, Ralph, is this is the original. But if you look at the Jackson photo, as most people see it, you can hardly see that stripe. But so they tried to take it out because I think it was the picture was taken at a different time.
I just
let
think
me ask you this then, Amy.
Bookout was wearing the wrong hat.
Is it your belief then that Bookout was wearing a hat that actually had that gray stripe, that little gray?
Yeah.
You think?
During the picture of when the Jackson photo was taken, yes.
Wow. That's amazing if it's true.
So they substituted Jack Ruby's real hat.
Right.
That's the one with a striped color.
A gift from, I think, the newsreel next. And you're going to see the hat. Right, so that's supposed to be the shooter, though we don't ever see him with a gun in his hand. And that's from the NBC film. And we see the shooter. And that's his left side.
Now there he doesn't seem to have the gray stripe. That seems
He
to
doesn't have the gray stripe. That's why I could have put several photos up there, but I thought we can see it moving around. There is no gray stripe there.
But that is not Ruby, am I correct?
That is not Ruby.
Amy, let me, I've never seen this before. I think it's excellent, but I want to point something out that the opposition claims that the black discs around his eyes is just due to shadow. But if that were true, as he moved his face and he's turning it, well, the shadow would change because, the light would be coming in, but yet those black discs are just solidly there all the time, no matter what position his face is in. And that tells you that it's not shadow. That's something that they added to it.
Yeah.
And
like every other photo we ever got our hands on.
See, they had to cover up his eyes because if his eyes were visible, well, it would be obviously he wasn't Ruby. I mean, the eyes carry so much of a person's look.
That's what I'm thinking. And the other one with the imposter in the elevator hallway, a black disc, you can't see his eyes either. So the two photos they want us to believe is Jack Ruby. You can't even really get a good look. But this is not, I mean, all this tells us is that they were messing around. The NBC film, a hat used in the NBC film by this person here is not the same hat.
Don't you agree, Ralph, from the profile that is decidedly not Jack Ruby?
Absolutely. I mean, he doesn't even look like he could be related to Jack Ruby.
Right.
But listen, let me make a point also that I'd like you all to think about, and that is that we really don't know what NBC showed on November 24th, 1963. Whatever they're showing us today, and it's something that could easily have been altered, modified, and we just don't know. Nobody has a home copy of what, and nobody could record what was actually broadcast. And it's doubtful that anybody could even remember if they saw it.
Ralph,
yeah.
I read on a website, and it was people talking about the shooting, and they were talking about that very thing, and they said it's not the same as they remember it. They remember being
really
a different position, and they remembered them coming, across differently. It was kind of hard to see understand what they were talking about, but I'll send you to the link.
I appreciate that. But the whole idea that NBC is trustworthy and that what they claim they showed in 1963 is exactly what they did is ridiculous. I mean,
well, you have to put your faith into a lot of different people, and with all these discrepancies, it's kind of hard. Oh yeah, this is the next one. So this is the second KRLD film by Phoenix, and there's no stripe there either.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
But wait, let me bring up one more point of thought on this. Is that I think the next step for us here is to really find out if there are any hats that had a black ribbon but had a center stripe that was, a different color. Because I don't claim to know for sure, but my greatest suspicion is that this is just a highly photoshopped image in which they mistakenly made that stripe gray. And I personally have never seen a fedora hat in which the bow on the ribbon was anything but one color. So I mean, if I'm wrong and somebody can find an actual hat.
There's a couple out there, Ralph. I have two.
I've seen like that with a gray stripe in the center of the ribbon. Well, it'll be very interesting. I mean, that is the next step, to find such a hat.
Amy already has.
Yeah, I got two of them, Ralph.
Look at that. Look at how Oswald turns and looks at him.
Exactly the same too. Every time. So then that's it about the hat, but the next topic is going to be about the newsreel film. It's number 7, I think, Gary.
Yeah. Are we too far ahead? Do I go backwards?
Yeah, number 7 on your PowerPoint display.
Okay. Yeah, my computer's moving a little slow.
It just got a little bit out of order.
Just tell me when I'm there.
Okay, this looks like it.
That was it? Okay. The next one.
The GIF, yeah, not this one. This one isn't seen a lot. It's part of a clip from the newsreel, what they showed at the movies back in the day in the 60s. I wasn't born yet, but this shows, it's only like 4 seconds long total, and it just shows them walking out. And this one, I think, was filmed at a completely different time, and I'll tell you why. But first of all, I want to focus on the gun flash. The gun flash that goes off right near Oswald's stomach. And I emailed, this was way in the beginning when I first started talking to him. And I said, Ralph, I didn't see a gun flash in any of these films. He said, yes, there is. Look at this one. So I looked at it and I got very interested. So I'm going to go through a couple frames of the film with you. So we can go to the next one. And what it is, this is going to be the first of 3, and it's just the arm on the right in yellow. That's the arm of the shooter going towards Oswald. It's in front of Graves. And just for reference, Oswald's hands. And then that's Graves' right hand through Oswald's left arm because he's bringing him along. Yeah. And then the next one will be the shooter's arm getting closer.
Oh.
That's it. So it's just a little bit closer. I put an arrow. And you can't see the gun. So, but it's just a little closer now. We'll go one more. Now this is when the shot is fired, apparently. And that little circle there on the next to Graves's hand is supposed to be the dull gun flash. But if that's the end of the shooter's arm, we shouldn't be able to see his hand there. Doesn't look like he's holding a gun at all. Because right where the tie is on the right, where you can't see it, that's where his jacket was pushed up. Then his arm is exposed. At the end of the arm, he has a hand, and there should be a gun there, but there's not.
Jim, let me ask you something, because you were a Marine. When
gun.
we see the muzzle flash that's visible, and just for a moment, we'll just assume that that's a real muzzle flash, although Amy and I know that it isn't. But, I mean, if that were a real muzzle flash, doesn't it mean that the bullet is already inside Oswald's body?
Sure.
Right. That's because they go pretty. My understanding is that the bullets travel pretty fast.
It does not look authentic to me either.
Yeah, Ralph, you and I have looked. You and I have looked at
white.
Yeah, Ralph, you and I have looked at this before. At the very end of this clip, it's a still photo injected into the video.
Yes, right. Yeah. Well, no, Amy knows about that.
Absolutely. So, I don't know if this is the right order, but we're going to get to that. It gets even better, you guys. Okay, so we're going to compare it now to the Bears photo, the Jack Bears photo, and that's the frame. The top left is the frame just before the first gun flash goes off. So you can see where his hand is, see where the arm is, and you can see where it's covering the bottom of his tie. It's above his belt. But in the Bears photo, his arm is lower. I mean, I know the angle is different because Bears took the photo from up high. He was standing on a railing. But still, this guy must have been very short to have his arm like extending forward and going underneath his belt. But in the newsreel frames, his arm is higher. I don't know if you can see that or zoom in.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yes, on the left, his arm is higher than it is on the right.
Yeah, it's by his belt. It's almost by his belt.
Yeah, it's
over here.
Yeah, right. On the left, it's higher than on the right.
I'd like to make a point that I'd like you to respond to, and that is that, all right, since Jim told us that basically the shot has already happened, the damage has been done, that means that the audible blast has already occurred, and Oswald has been hit. So how could he not be showing any reaction. If you notice, looking at Oswald between the first shot and the second the top image and the bottom image, then in the top image, supposedly the shot hasn't happened yet, and in the bottom image it has, but there's no difference in his face, in his countenance, in his posture, in anything. It's like he's been shot, but he hasn't even begun to react yet.
Well, but remember, there will be a momentary neurological, delay. I mean, there will be a difference in time, relatively brief, of course, but...
Yeah, I agree with that. We're going to take a break right now. There's a new JFK show. We'll be right back.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
That's what we were told. Most Americans never believed Lee Oswald was the lone gunman, for excellent reasons. In fact, there were at least 6 shooters who fired from 8 to 10 shots or more who are identified here. We have, finally, the solution to the greatest murder mystery in history, laid out for the world to see, proof after proof after proof. Photos were faked, the body was changed, x-rays were altered, the home movies were fixed. 15 experts contribute to a 529-page book with 1,037 photos and diagrams in black and white and color.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you'd like JFK, who, how, and why, and would like to support the new JFK show, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.
All right, welcome back to the new JFK show. We've got Amy Joyce just rolling over the JFK community. Let's go, Amy.
Okay, so we can go to the next one. I forget where I'm at, but I'll find out. Oh, this was one from the video, and you could see, again, we can't see the gun, but we can see his arm, and we can see where the gun flash, whatever that was, should be. So it should be higher if that's where his arm is, because that's the top of his arm, and then extending from that would be the muzzle, and at the end of the muzzle should be the flash, except for it's a couple inches lower. So the yellow mark is where I think it should have been, a little higher.
And you're saying that based on the location of the shooter's arm?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We're saying that we can't even see the gun. I mean, if the gun was actually there, we would not be able to see Graves' hand.
Well, listen, we can't really even see the shooter's hand. To me, it almost looks like it gets to a wrist and there's nothing back.
Yeah, because there's no, you could see the jacket or it's black. I mean, there should be a hand there, but
Is this leading up to the conclusion that Oswald may have participated in a false shooting that he thought was going to protect him, and then when they got him in the ambulance, they actually shot him?
Something like that, but I don't know. I haven't speculated that much yet.
That's what I believe 100%. That
something like that.
2 or 3 times, the police officers were believing they were going to practice or rehearse or a drill, and we're going to practice bringing Oswald in and out. And they had several times where they did it, lots of footage to put back together. And I believe that Oswald was promised to be sipping Mai Tais in Tahiti after they did this.
Well, so, the equivalent of what would have satisfied him, right?
All right, we can go on. I want to get to the good stuff here. So this is more, the top left one is the dull flash. The top middle one is the next frame. That's the bright flash. Then the top right one is when it becomes dull again. And I want to ask you if you've ever seen that before at 29 frames per second. If you're lucky, you might catch one. I mean, really, really lucky. But I looked it up, and it's about, in order to catch 2 flashes, the camera speed should be filming at about 10,000 frames per second. In order to get 3, you need about 70,000, and they were filming only at 28. So there's just no doubt that they put these.
I don't know, Amy. Those numbers don't sound right to me. I would think that the flash could be caught over a couple of frames. That would be my surmise. But you have evidently looked at this more closely than have I. So that's just my gut reaction.
I didn't put in the videos from where they did ultra slow motion at 70,000 frames per second, where you can actually see the gun flash, the muzzle exploding and then dissipating downward. But what never happened was that the intensity of the light or the flash didn't go from dull to bright to dull again. And it also took it. You know, I think you got to be really lucky to catch the one flash, but yes, it's possible. But in order to catch it on 3 different frames, you need to be filming at over 1,000 frames per second.
I would have thought the flash would be more substantial than what we see.
Well, but Jim, I'm also wondering, why does the flash look more like a flashlight?
Yeah, I agree, Ralph.
Yeah.
It doesn't look right to me. It should have a direction toward the target.
When you think about what a muzzle flash is, which is exploding gases, exploding,
Yeah.
How could
like
it be
firecracker?
How could it be so neat and?
Well, a firecracker goes in every direction, Amy. This is directed because it's coming out of a muzzle. So it'd be more like a flare, okay? But a mini flare is what it should resemble, and it doesn't.
I wish I would have done that for you, because I did have where they filmed the gun exploding, even a small revolver like this one, and how many frames they need.
That's perfect. Yeah, you want to add that in here. You want to get that.
Jim, let me point this out to you also, that I have seen footage of that very revolver, the Colt Cobra, being fired, and it does produce a very, very brilliant muzzle flash, and it looks nothing like that. It definitely has a very expansive and
which would endure over several frames, I surmise.
Yeah. In other words, it doesn't look anything like that. Not even close. It doesn't.
So that's a good reason to believe this is not the muzzle flash from a Cobra.
No, it does not at all match it.
And then, as Ralph was saying earlier, that so we get a non-response, and then after that, these are the next 3 frames, and even it looks like they just kind of use the same picture over and over again, because there's no movement at all by anybody except for the shooter's arm, just a little bit. We can see it in the last one. And there was
how
also
many times
another.
have we seen that? Like the backyard photos, the same head all the time.
So, Amy, in other words, those 3 frames on the lower level, the bottom, those are all after the shot.
Yeah.
We're not really seeing any reaction in Oswald, and we're not seeing any reaction in either the detectives who are leading him. It's like everyone's deaf. They didn't hear the gun blast. They didn't see the shooter come in, even though he passed right in front of Graves. And Oswald seems to be, still waiting to actually react to having his entire insides catastrophically.
They stopped because they're supposed to be moving this whole time, and they never did stop. They kept walking. Shooter ran up, thrust the gun in him. They didn't stop and wait like some of them said they did. We can see that in the other films. This one.
Yeah, they should be looking at the gun. If someone's moving forward before they even fire it, you should see people reacting to looking at the gun coming towards them.
Yeah, and they even said that they yelled out his name and said, "Jack, stop that!" And he said, "You killed our president, you rat son of a bee." But there's nothing like that on the audio. They listened to it over and over. What was it? Ike Pappas audio. He had a tape recorder with him, and he taped it live. And there was nothing like that said by the shooter, and nobody screaming out.
Now, do you hear the sound of the shot on the Mike Pappas on the Ike Pappas recording?
I didn't hear that recording myself.
I haven't.
We need to check that, because then you could have an acoustical comparison between the sound of a Cobra as well.
Right.
So then you got not only the
If it was
flash not
available.
matching, but the sound not matching.
Right, and the precise moment that goes off.
Right. You could coordinate it with the videos.
And that would be very nice. I'll make a note of that too, but I've never heard of anyone having that. I just heard
you've heard of references to it, but you've never actually accessed that.
They talk
audio.
about it.
Yeah.
Well, it's got to be available somewhere.
But the next one I think is a GIF, and that's a real treat. There's no gun flash. I found this is must be the original.
Yeah, that's a still picture right there.
So here it is again. Now this is before they changed the film to high definition. Everybody got stretched out and widescreen. And it's the same thing. Shooter comes up, but there is no gun flash. There's no muzzle explosion.
Wow. What a setup.
I don't know what the opposition would say about this as to why it obviously looks very, very bad that it isn't here. They can hardly say that, well, somebody took it out, that it used to be there. That's ridiculous. So the only logical conclusion is that the other muzzle flash is fake, that it was imposed into the...
Well, before I even knew that, I knew this was out there, this other copy, which is, incidentally, that one's marked, let's see. This is a newsreel. The one with the flash is marked 97B. This one's marked 97. So it's 200 Universal News, Volume 36, Reel 97. This one.
Okay.
And then the other one with the gun flash is Volume 36, Reel 97B.
So this is what they showed in the theaters when you go to see a movie. So what do you make of them putting the still picture that was in the magazines and stuff at the very end, like right there? I mean, what do you make of that?
It's a screenshot from the film. It looks exactly like the Jackson photo, but it's completely different. I mean, it's not completely different. It's very, very close. But Ralph, you did a lot of comparisons on there. They're different.
Right. There are subtle differences between this and the Jackson photo, but it's very obvious to me that they were basically trying to duplicate the Jackson.
From which film? Is that from JFK?
No, this is from what's called the International Newsreel. It was one of those little newsreels that they would play between movies at the theater in the old days.
Yeah. You go to the movies, right after the cartoon, they would play something like this.
They play
little... About the president getting shot, and then the assassin, the murder of the assassin.
Remember that in the old days, there used to be double features all the time. Today, that's gone. You go to the movies, you see one movie. But in those days, there would be two movies, and between the movies, that's when they would often play this newsreel.
And you'd also have a cartoon.
And a cartoon, right.
Yeah, well, we have two cartoons here. So, but what it is, it's just that picture at the very end, and it's as the assassin moves in. You know, I remember hearing it myself. You know, with the.
See, what I always point out, my talking point about this is that last frame can't be part of the film, because if it was, well, there would be more film after it. But the fact that it all ends right there, just means that they snugged up this still frame right.
Well, he's not even wearing the hat, is he? I mean, look at this. Look at that still frame. Is that? Oh, what's that light? That bright light on the top of his hat? Can you freeze it with that? Yeah, stop. Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah. That's right at the end. I don't know what that is. But people are in different positions from this film and then from the other. I mean, look you still got Fritz on the left, and you can see him, and he was several feet away in front of the car that was backing up. Then you got Pappas moving. All of a sudden, he was on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, but in the movie, you only got to see it one time, and you didn't catch all this stuff.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. We need to do a side-by-side, Ralph, of all the points that were there different.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We put that up against Jackson and just really, really compare them and see. But, the point that Gary just made about, people only got to see it fleetingly once. Well, that was true of the whole NBC shooting. And remember, people weren't expecting it. They didn't have anything to anticipate, really. And it happened so fast that by the time it was over, well, all they really had left in their mind was just a general idea of what happened, not details, not not photographic details that they could recall. So from that point on, they could claim anything and show anything, and nobody, is likely to. Certainly nobody can concretely dispute it by saying, "Hey, I made my copy at home."
Well, and plus somebody's getting shot on TV, and they didn't show that back then. It was supposed to be the first one, so they're all in shock. I mean, that's actually somebody, dying.
So it really wasn't the first murder televised on TV. It was the first fake murder.
Ralph, you see Graves there, though?
Yeah.
I wanted you to look at this. We could get you a better picture, some stills. But he doesn't have that pin on his tie in this.
All right. Okay.
And you got to take a look at that belt he's wearing too. Because in this, you can see those little bright things coming up. This is like a shorter version. Actually, it's probably like 4 seconds instead of 2. But with all the movement and the light flashing, you'd be able to see
his pin.
Yeah, he had a pin like right in the middle of his tie, and you could see it in the other photos. All but
let me specify that it's in Oswald's last living photo. His last photo as they were wheeling him into the hospital. It's supposed to be an iconic photo in which one of the detectives is grasping his hand. And meanwhile, the driver of the ambulance is actually holding Oswald's arm up, and Oswald's making a fist, which is pretty hard to do when you have no blood circulating. But the point is that in that photo, you can distinctly see that Graves has a tie pin in his tie. And yet,
no, he doesn't have it, or he does. He does, or he doesn't.
I'll tell you in a second.
Either way, it's the opposite of another photo we have where and the belt is different too. He's wearing a different belt.
So these guys just couldn't get it straight, huh?
They got it really close. Probably better than I could do.
Yeah.
But they never imagined we'd have internet with all these pictures on there, and then we'd be.
Okay, I was right then. All right, so he does have the pin in the photo at the hospital. That last photo as they're wheeling him in. That's the one in which you can see the tie pin on Graves. But you don't see it here. You don't see it in the Johnston photo. And that's a contradiction that I don't think can be explained. I mean, I don't think that there's any talking point that's going to explain that. What are you going to say? That the tie pin...
So Lavelle here is still alive, and he's just had to live with an incredible burden his whole life.
Well, I've thought about that, Gary, and you know what I think, and I don't know the man, but this is just my opinion that, and what I'm about to say is sort of been documented by psychiatrists, but when you've been telling a certain story for lots and lots of years, decades, that it gets to be where you actually start believing it. You actually start. That's the only reality that you now know. You've been telling it so long that now just. And
especially when you've done something so wrong that you could be in a state of denial, maybe.
Well, yeah. Well, I think that that's it too. But remember something, and this affects everybody. But the man is in his 90s now. Okay, so
it's who we're talking about right here. For those who don't know.
Yeah, at this point in time.
Well, I think to get to get the cops to go along with this, it probably, a lot of them didn't know exactly what was going on. But one of their brothers was murdered. As far as they were concerned, this was the man that did it. So they probably, the way I understand how some officers are, very protective of them, and probably.
Well, Jim, you would know this. I mean, do you think the motive for killing Tippit involved just sort of poisoning the Dallas police against Oswald and making sure that they were? I mean, what do you regard as the motive for killing J.D. Tippit?
Well, they claimed Oswald killed Tippit, and that proved he had killed JFK. They used the Tippit shooting as though it were proof that Oswald had done it when he was already in the Texas Theater by 110 when Tippit was shot.
Okay.
Where we had 4 shell casings ejected from automatics, and Oswald only had a revolver, where the first officer on the scene initialed them, and they were 2 of one make and 2 of another, Remington Rand and Western. And when they realized the blunder, they made a substitution in the shell casings, and now they came from a revolver, and there were 3 of one make.
I also believe that it was the reason to kill Oswald. In other words, hey, we had to do it. He had already killed a police officer, so we had to shoot.
Good. That's good, Gary.
Yeah.
He was a cop killer, so of course they couldn't take the chance on losing a nub.
But I very much agree with Amy that in this case, let's face it, even though presumably only one person pulled the trigger and killed Oswald, the fact is that the others were involved. Okay, they were accessories to it. How do you get them to do it? Well, if he's a cop killer, he has it coming. This is justice for JT. So
there's something else, Rolf. Look at this image here. Look at all the smoke.
Wow.
Exactly. That is a great point. Sergeant Dean said that there was a lot of smoke. He saw the smoke from the gun, and we never see any smoke, even in that slow motion one.
That sounds like a smoking gun or a non-smoking gun.
Well, this is from 1920.
The smoking gun was a non-smoking gun.
There you go.
And Jim, here's another thing to think about, I think, is that, this all took place in what I call a cubby hole, because it was just that little opening along the ramp in which there was a little recess. So the recess is the cubby hole. And when that shot was taken, where did the sound have to go? Nowhere. All it could do was, bounce in that space off the wall. So imagine how loud it would have been.
That's all the more reason why, if there was actually a recording, it should be very prominent.
Very loud, yeah.
It should be reverberating.
I mean, it's loud enough that the sound alone would have been startling to anyone.
And we don't see that, do we, Ralph? The people don't jump out of their skin or take cover or hold their ears.
Right.
No, nobody.
In none of the films. Nobody
has a startle reaction.
They don't back away even as though it had been a firecracker.
Yeah, they're rehearsing.
And you can control that. You jump. It's involuntary.
It's a startle. Yeah, it's a startle.
You're right, Amy. Right. It's involuntary,
Right.
Most people anyway. The reason I put this picture on was just because I wanted to make a point that they did not. I have a lot of stuff on what they did wrong in those. There was everything they did wrong. It was just crazy. They weren't protecting them at all. But this is from 1923. Bulletproof vests have been around for about 80 years. And this is from the Maryland Police Department testing it. And they didn't give Oswald one. And they had the FBI. They had the Secret Service there. They were the most trained people to protect somebody. And there was 2 Secret Service agents doing paperwork in Fritz's office at the time. And Oswald had death threats up the kazoo. I mean, they went through a lot of trouble because I guess they had phone calls in the middle of the night, and they threatened. They said we were going to kidnap him. They said we were going to get him on the transfer from city jail to county jail.
Every reason in the world to have a bulletproof vest.
Exactly. So then if you go to the next one, this is, I think it's James Earl Ray, FBI. He's got a bulletproof vest on. This is a few years later, and that's how you protect somebody.
And he was another patsy, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, that's another story. I don't know much about him. I was thinking of the other man, the RFK's assassin.
He's another
look how close his cuffs are together, too. I mean, he's not able to go like this or like this, as Oswald did. And he's well protected. He's not, if Oswald had a vest on, they wouldn't have been able to do it, of course, but maybe that's why they didn't give him one. I don't know, but I know that they've had them for dozens of years before that. Even
Well, it's a great point, Amy. Great
Villager and the gang,
They weren't protecting.
And especially since some of my opponents have tried to claim, oh, they didn't have any bulletproof vests in
They should have had shotguns at the edge of the ramp, and they had more than 6 guards on the Commerce Street side, and they had 1 guard, Vaughn, on the Main Street side. So that tells me that they planned on saying that that's the side that Ruby came down, because they only had 1 officer there, and he was supposed to crowd control, direct traffic, and guard, make sure nobody comes in. And I also made a list. They had dozens of officers there that were supposed to be on security and guard duty, and 18 of them were sent away at 10:45 to do traffic corner work. 18.
Wow.
Instead of maybe helping, where they're short guys.
That's quite a reduction in force.
And it's like it seems it's done on purpose. And, it really makes a difference when you look at and you're reading what they say. Oh, at 10:45, Sergeant Dean sent me to, Elm and the Expressway. And I was sent to do this.
It's wonderful.
I was starting the elevator, but at 11 o'clock, they sent me to go, go work traffic. And in one of the corners, they had 4 guys.
It's wonderful you're looking at this in such detail. It's splendid.
Well, in general, I mean, the whole idea that the Dallas Police Department could not secure Oswald to walk, what's the distance? We're talking 20, 30 feet here to a car? I mean,
30 feet.
In their own garage? I mean, the idea that Jack Ruby outsmarted the entire Dallas Police Department is just ridiculous.
And nobody saw him.
But
then reports changed, and then they saw him. But that's another story, because I found out that they lied. The Warren Commission knew that they lied, and there's a letter, which I didn't think we'd have time for tonight, but in which they're basically guilty of extortion and threatening the Dallas Police Department members to cooperate. It even says there, we know that P.T. Dean lied when he said that Jack Ruby told him that he had been planning the murder for days, and this is what I think we should do. We should use this to get them to cooperate with us.
How could anybody think that Jack Ruby planned the murder for days when he brought his dog along on the day of the murder? I mean,
exactly, yeah. And he wasn't really, with it as far as you know what this is, Ralph. Ruby dancing, obviously, before the murder, and he's missing his forefinger.
Well, he's missing about half of it, or maybe 2/3 even.
The first digit. After the first digit.
In other words, his index finger on his left hand is mutilated. You can see he's got just a stump there.
But it got bit off in a fight, I think.
And I believe it's my conviction that the reason why, when they staged the Jackson photo, that the shooter is using his middle finger to pull the trigger, is because they got confused and thought that Ruby had lost the index finger on his shooting hand when he didn't.
Very clever, Rolf.
Yeah, they got mixed up. They thought, well, Ruby would have had to use his middle finger. No, not true. He had his right index finger.
How come it's cut off here? Is it just bent?
No, it's definitely it's part of the record.
The first digit.
The story goes that it got. Isn't the story that it got bit off in a fight?
You mean he actually was missing that digit?
Yeah, he definitely. There's other images like it, Jim. No, he definitely was missing that digit. No, he had a mutilated left hand.
It's in the doctor's reports too. And
okay. So this is not a photoshopped or altered photo.
No.
He definitely. That was
There's
him.
others. That would be a good one.
Amy, do you have any idea the date of this picture?
No. I have the full picture though, Ralph.
I've seen the full too. You see the pretty young woman he's with. I have to laugh a little bit because he looks really, really, really excited to see her.
He looks happy. They're dancing. They're at a dance.
I don't see any reason. Yeah, no reason to throw your life away with hotties like that around.
Yeah, right. I mean,
we're running short. If Amy's got,
my sense is he was really enjoying her company. Put it that way.
We're running out. Amy,
Yeah.
You can't see it well, but this is from the newsreel. On the left, he's got his hands closed, and on the right, he's got his hands open. That's the best I could do.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to see on the top, like that's a thumb, and it looks like he's got a full finger to me. They're sort of bent, but if you look at where the digits are, see how the light kind of shines off it? I don't know if there's somebody that's better at looking at photos or writing them.
Well, Ralph says he actually was missing. Is this therefore book out? Is that what you're suggesting, that the book out actually had all the fingers when Ruby was missing half?
So in other words, this is the hand that Ruby would have had the mutilated index finger, and yet on the left there, to my eyes, it looks like he has an intact index finger. It seems to
Interesting,
be
yeah.
the same length as
Further proof that this isn't Ruby.
right.
Yeah, I should have explained that. Yeah, that was his hand. They were real careful to make him hold his hands closed, you know, because they didn't want to expose his rings or his watches or anything, or that he didn't have one, which Jack Ruby did. But
Amy,
the way they dealt with that in the Jackson photo is that they have the shooter crimping in a very strange fist, his left hand. And the result is that, you know, you can't really see the index finger one way or the other. So that's what they did there. But I agree with Amy that that looked like an intact index finger to me.
Amy, I think you've done a great job of opening up this issue. Absolutely fascinating. I'm really glad you could join us this evening.
thank you.
All right. Any last words, Amy, before we go?
No, I'm good. Had a good time.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for being on the new JFK show, and very good work. And you seem
Nice
to
to
be
meet you all.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Bye,
a
Ralph.
rising star in the JFK community, Amy Joyce. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
That's what we were told. Most Americans never believed Lee Oswald was the lone gunman, for excellent reasons. In fact, there were at least 6 shooters who fired from 8 to 10 shots or more who are identified here. We have, finally, the solution to the greatest murder mystery in history, laid out for the world to see, proof after proof after proof. Photos were faked, the body was changed, x-rays were altered, the home movies were fixed. 15 experts contribute to a 529-page book with 1,037 photos and diagrams in black and white and color.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you'd like JFK, who, how, and why, and would like to support the new JFK show, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.